broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight. On the rampant we want was so gallantly streaming, and the rockets regular, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sing us the star-spangled banner yet wave. Oh, the land of the free and the hope of
You stick to the scheduled audit tomorrow. Everything official, everything in public. You'll be fine. I need for you to be fine. You know, you sold this as an office job. You're not just an analyst anymore. You're operational now.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Patriot Show. I'm your host, Anthony Stephen Malone, and I am privileged to introduce you to a special guest today, Scott Schlimmer. He is a former CIA analyst, and he is the real Jack Ryan. Hello, Scott.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, mate. It's an honor, a privilege to have you on the show. Anyway, we've spoken about certain things for quite some time, many years. A lot of the guys in America and the intelligence community will know exactly who you are, mate. Okay. Some of my viewers, though, in England might not know a great deal about you. They all have seen the film Jack Ryan. They've all seen the Hollywood stuff. All right. But with you, nothing's Hollywooded. It's all real. Okay. So going back before you became the person you are now, can you tell us a little bit about your background, please?
Yeah, it's funny you bring up the real Jack Ryan concept, because you watch the movies and around when Amazon was creating its newest, the latest Jack Ryan series with the guy from The Office, I think Jim Krasinski. Vice Media reached out to me, and we had talked about doing a series on me as the real Jack Ryan, and had some pretty detailed conversations. And I think the reality was, it just was a little too boring. The reality wasn't like Hollywood at all. I've never killed anybody, or no jumping off buildings, or chasing, no car chases. I think it's actually more interesting than the show is. I actually didn't get that into the Amazon show. but yeah, it's an interesting dichotomy of the reality versus the myth.
Certainly is, but a lot of the work you've done and been involved in is far more interesting than what they put on Hollywood. But we'll come to little bits and pieces in the future. So
mhm.
I've got a question. What were you like as a kid when you were growing up?
Definitely never saw myself working at the CIA. Um, God, kind of geeky when I was real young. I remember the summer days, my friends and I would play video games in the basement, and my mom would try to get us to go on the boat or go to the beach or something. And no, we want to play our video games. Um, Became a little less geeky as I aged. Played a lot of sports. Played a lot of baseball and basketball, and was a pretty good runner in high school. Um, I actually made the varsity basketball team and sat the bench basically the whole year on a team that never won. A really, really bad team. And so I quit the basketball team and joined the Quiz Bowl team. Basically, that's team Jeopardy. So we would play against other schools in Quiz Bowl Jeopardy. So that would actually further the geek hypothesis. um,
Well, yeah, well, I think your skills were going to come in handy at a later date.
right.
What about your education? When you got a bit older, you went to university, and you're very academically qualified. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I got into a good school, University of Michigan. I'm actually wearing the shirt right now, coincidentally. I mean, I grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, small town. It's a small city, really. I grew up outside of Ann Arbor in Whitmore Lake, even smaller town. My high school had, I don't know, maybe 400 people, and my graduating class had 62. But yeah, really good. Got a good education at this small school in a small town. We actually had something like 12 people went to U of M, which is, I would say, the best school in the state. There's some rivalries there. Um, yeah, then got to U of M and University of Michigan. My first class had more people in it than my entire high school,
Right.
and definitely had that imposter syndrome at the beginning where I don't belong here. The people were so smart. Then after a couple of years, you realize, they're not that smart.
Yeah.
And I got to say that the agency was the same, where they say that the CIA is more selective than both Harvard and Yale. And you get there, and it's again very smart, passionate people. You get that same imposter feeling, like, oh, I don't belong here. Then you realize, oh, okay, I guess we all belong. Um, yeah, I'm not sure what else to say on that one.
That's about it. I've got to say, I actually know you as a friend, and you are a very humble individual. I just want my viewers to actually know you are pretty much what we call in the military the ultimate grey man. They don't see you coming, okay? Which I think is awesome. Oh, the
I got
question.
that from my dad, actually, real quick on the humbleness. My dad, and it's kind of the Michigan attitude too, of you show up and you do your job, and that's it. You don't
Yeah,
need to. I think act like you've been there before has been the mentality. And it was the same in sports, where you go score your touchdown and or hit your home run and win the game, and you don't celebrate like it's this the most amazing thing that's happened to you. It's just what you do. You do
yeah,
go and do it again.
yeah.
Um, yeah,
So
that stuck
I've
with
got to
me.
ask the question because everyone's going to be like thinking, well, hang on a minute, what the hell? How did you join the CIA? How did that happen?
Believe it or not, it was a career fair. You never would guess this, but yeah, I went to this career fair. It was my ex-girlfriend was going to a career fair. This was it was the second year of grad school, last year of graduate school, and she was going. She wanted to talk to Health and Human Services and some others, and I thought, oh, I got nothing else to do. I'll go. I thought I was going to talk to ESPN and they would be interesting, and they weren't, oddly. And yeah, so I ended up talking to it was actually the deputy director of intelligence. One of the real high ups is just the person I happened to talk to at this career fair, and talked to them for like an hour. It was really interesting. And basically, I was sold from the career fair, and it was a pretty extensive process from there. Um, got from there, it was an online application, and then hit an online test. Basically, there was a fake, like a made up country and a made up scenario, and we had to basically tell the fake president in this scenario, here's what's happening, here's what you should do, and analyze and basically do the job before even going. And yeah, apparently did okay on that. So then from there was a big group interview, probably 100 people in like a hotel. And um, yeah, that was interesting too. And we would have individual interviews at the same time. And then after that, you would get a conditional offer of employment. It was basically, we're going to give you an offer, but if you don't pass the security clearance process, sorry, no offer. If somebody gets in before you faster, sorry, no offer. So it was very, very uncertain at that point, and the process was still a whole year of. God, I got flown out to Virginia, D.C. I got a polygraph, blood tests, psychological tests, and it was kind of interesting. They reimburse you for the trip, and in typical CIA style, it was an envelope full of cash. That was how they reimbursed you. Then they did a whole background investigation, investigated my mom. To be honest, they didn't actually need to investigate my mom. I had to ask my investigator, "Hey, my mom would really enjoy if you could give her the detailed look." But no, they checked my friends, my neighbors. They'd ask other people trying to find bad dirt on me. And it was a pretty extensive process, but not at all expected. It all started with a career fair.
Yeah, wow. So something very small soon grew into what was going to become your career for quite some time. What did
Yeah.
you think of the training when you got accepted and you went in to do the training and that?
Yeah, the training is world class. I was really blown away by the training. You get on the job for about 2-3 months just to get a feel for what's going on. And I remember in that time they'd say, "Oh, here's a diplomat. Go brief them." And like, well, the diplomat knows more than me. So they definitely throw you to the wolves and give you the experience right away. There's no holding back and or anything like that. And after 3 months, and this is the training for analysts, you go to, they call it the CAP, the Career Analyst Program. And this was, yeah, it's been a while, probably 6 months of just intensive training with like 30 people. And it covered everything. I mean, it starts with just personality tests and how to deal with people and Myers-Briggs and things like that. Go into critical thinking, and this really has applied to everything I've done since, not just analysis and not just government work. Writing, presentations, disaster simulations, where okay, here's completely new information. You need to figure out in an hour what's happening and what to advise the president and the people below the president. And I always remember the first time I saw top secret information, and you see the videos and the movies and you think, oh my God, this is going to be like this earth-shattering, amazing thing. And I remember it was during one of these scenarios, this simulated scenario, and I think it might have been a half day, so you had to squeeze lunch in. And my first top secret document, I dripped burger on it, like hamburger grease. Um, and it was top secret because of how it was collected. The actual information on it wasn't earth shattering. But that's the kind of thing. If there were a movie about the real Jack Ryan, it wouldn't be, oh my God, shooting somebody up in the streets. It would be up at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, eating your dinner because you have to squeeze it in and dripping the ketchup on the top secret document.
Exactly. During your career, which was extensive, how did you map your career out? Did you just kind of take it as it came, or did you actually have a bit of a plan?
Um, there's a natural progression for analysts. Some become more managers and some become more subject experts. I was more of a generalist coming in, where some people are hired because they know a lot about a region, they speak the language, they've been there, and are really experts on that one topic. I was more of a generalist who the agency decided, okay, you could put this person on anything really, and they're just going to do a good job. So that's why I spent half of my career on South Asia and half my career on um, more on Central America, and had some other projects too. So I went more the management route and the generalist route. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, mostly you just follow where the need was. Basically, wherever the country needed me, that's where I
It's a
went.
good thing that you've got the reputation of being very good at what you do, and you can crack a lot of tough nuts, for want of a better word. So you've got put wherever you were needed, for want of a better word on it.
Exactly.
Well done, that man. Right, a
Mhm.
question, because obviously your career is quite extensive. How many directors of the CIA and how many presidents have you served under?
Good question. So presidents was George W. Bush and Obama. So just two. I will say it's funny when you actually start working for them. I would write for the presidents, both of them, pretty regularly. And to be honest, people would make fun of George W. Bush as being not that smart, and that's not true at all. It's interesting because George W. Bush would more often, if you'd write him a paper, you'd get a handwritten note. Like, he read every detail, and you'd get a handwritten note with follow-up questions, and he was really, really into the intelligence. And President Obama obviously is very intelligent too, and that's more well known. But he actually, I would say George W. Bush followed the intelligence more closely than Obama, which I think
Well,
most people wouldn't expect.
yeah. I think a lot of people wouldn't expect that, but it's true. Very sharp in individual. You actually wrote. You touched on it very briefly. Yeah, you actually wrote papers for the president of the United States, and he read them, and he corresponded back to you as well. I just want people to realize at the level that your experience was being taken.
Yeah, you forget sometimes once you've done it enough times. But yeah, I remember the first one. It is pretty amazing. And when eventually we write for the president, that's the goal. Anytime you write something, you want it to go to the president, because then you're advising and informing the entire strategy. We write for a lot of other customers too, but the presidents are definitely our favorites.
Yeah. So on that one, what is the biggest and best successes that you've actually had during your service? Obviously, we can't touch on anything which will broach national security, but can you give us a slight overview?
Yeah, I can think of two that come to mind. The first one is one of these presidential ones, and the feedback I got from this was that after reading this paper I wrote, this was President Bush, they immediately convened a White House Oval Office session to discuss the topics and the recommendations. And you can't get any more immediate than that. That was a good one. and I think some good came of that. The other one, this one I have mixed feelings about actually. I won a National Intelligence Award, and that was for my work on a, I guess it's a national intelligence estimate. So these are the largest, most authoritative intelligence assessments that are done in the USA, and they usually involve all the agencies. So not just CIA, but also, well, I shouldn't, FBI, DIA,
Everyone.
Homeland Security, and everyone else too. And this was an assessment on terrorist threats to the U.S. homeland, and I won this award, and it was a really cool award ceremony. And I went there, and I was shocked because the FBI team that managed it was the Boston Marathon bombings some time ago. This entire team won this award, and they all had to share the award. And I was like, how did I get the same thing just for myself? And I mean, those guys I think earned it, and women earned it more than me. But no, I'm very proud of that one. I still have that. I still keep that award.
Yeah. I'd just like to point out to my viewers that is one of several awards that you've actually won during your time within the agencies for some impeccable work that you've done as well. The real Jack Ryan didn't get any, I don't think. Just want to put that one out there.
I don't remember any award ceremonies in the movies. There might be.
Yeah, I think now we've actually mentioned that the next Jack Ryan film, you're going to see him on the. He's going to get an award, and he's got. Right, the other thing which I think is very important that you've actually used all your experience and all your knowledge. You actually mentor and support hundreds of junior CIA analysts. You've written the Analyst notebook, and one of your papers, your targeting analyst, is being used at the CIA training facilities as well. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, there was a period, and I've been out of the agency now for about 5 years, 6 years, but there was a period, I don't know, probably 10 years ago, and I think they fixed it since, but where there were a lot of people at the top who were older and more experienced, and then a lot of younger new people, and not many people in between. So the goal was to capture wisdom and capture experience and pass that along to the new people, which was heavily needed at the time. So yeah, this was in the early days of Wikipedias, and there was an Intellipedia that the DNI created. And so I used that Intellipedia to create basically an evolving repository of knowledge. And that became an analyst handbook for new analysts. And previously, there's a lot of people, and it would be passed down orally for the most part, and training, and it would take a while. So this was just a way to speed that process up, where somebody could come in on day one, and I don't know, some people learn better from hearing from somebody with experience or interacting, more extroverts and introverts. This is going back to that first week of training in CAP. Introverts learn better by not having that experience, which is scary for some people, especially when they're new and young and this really smart, experienced person. So they learn a little better by reading it on the Intellipedia, the Wikipedia. So that's what created that. And yeah, that's just a big thing of mine that I care about is passing wisdom down from the more experienced people to people who are hungry to learn it.
I think it's so important that a lot of the younger ones, because don't forget, like with everything that's happening in the world at the moment, 9/11 happened 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Let's say 20 years. We've been like, wow. Like I was thinking about it the other day, and a lot is happening in 20 years. But now we actually have people, soldiers who were serving, and members of the intelligence community who were not born
Oh, geez.
If you think
I haven't
about
thought that one through. You're right.
yeah, so all the
Yeah.
experience in the months and years straight after 9/11, that was a learning curve, a sharp one for a lot of people. But a lot
Yeah.
of good came out of that as well. But a lot of the younger ones, like the junior CA analysts, and obviously members of the of all the services, if you think about that, a lot of them were not even born
Hmm.
at that point. It just it made me feel a little bit old when I thought of that one, like. But
It is amazing. Yeah, I still remember 9/11 and how much that shaped people of our generation.
hell yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, it's been a while, and that's a good thing.
yeah,
Things have been quiet on the terrorism front since then, and I like to think I played a role in that. And a lot of people worked really, really, really hard. And I remember in those days that was the number one reason that I remember people giving up amazing careers on Wall Street and some of the people I met in the agency. And that was the number one reason was 9/11 and not wanting something like that to happen again.
yeah.
So a lot of passion.
I think that's what it was. A lot of passion. A lot of people took it very personally, and they
Yeah.
wanted to be patriot. They wanted to get out there and help and sort this. I've got to mention it because, as an absolute fluke, today, while we are recording this, is the 2nd of May. I'm not going to mention his name, but it's the anniversary of a high value target that was killed by American Special Forces with a lot of help from the intelligence community, and obviously connected to what happened in 9/11. It just so happens today we're doing this interview, which I find a little bit wow. Okay, yeah, we can't talk about that anymore. Okay, the other thing I've got to say on this one, obviously, the real Jack Ryan, all right? I bet you the real Jack Ryan never went to 7 countries and spent a month in each of them in about a year. Can you talk about
Yeah, 2019 was a good year for me. I was just consulting and had some time on my hands. So I actually had previously met a girl in Colombia and moved down there, lived there for 6 months. That was my first time being out of the country for so long and actually just living somewhere. Usually I'd go for a month or a couple weeks, a couple months. And when you're doing it in tourist mode, you get tired and need to come back to the US. And no, because you know, when you have a girlfriend, it's a different experience and you're learning a place through a local. Um, yeah, good experience. So when my visa ran out, I thought, well, what do I do now? And I decided, okay, I'm going to go to, I ended up going to Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, and then Italy that year. And then with Colombia and the US, there was a fair amount of traveling. And in each case, it was living in that country, which is a fun experience. And I'm actually in Colombia right now. I found from that experience, I've enjoyed living in other places for good amounts of time.
it? Well, you're definitely a very well traveled individual. Definitely on that one. Some of my viewers are going to be thinking about obviously the CA, the agency, and Hollywood. All right, is there? I just want to confirm this one. Is there an office or department within the CIA that deals with Hollywood scripts?
um, is there a department? So I mean, the
Is
public
there?
affairs department does there. Yeah, that does happen. And
No.
for that reason, we would often get to meet famous people. They would come to headquarters. So I have a photo with Kevin Bacon. He and his brother came and visited, and nice guys. And so I don't know if people still play this game. There used to be a game, 6 Degrees of Separation, where you could name any actor and get to them within 6 movies of whether they're in a movie with Kevin Bacon, kind of like the 6 Degrees of Separation scientific study. And so from there, I played 7 Degrees of Separation from me. No, but yeah, there were a lot of famous people came in, and And I wasn't so involved with that, but I actually do know somebody who did work in that office. And I do know the CIA does have a good relationship with Hollywood and
Yeah.
tries to keep things as realistic as possible and advise.
I think with Jack Ryan, sometimes, which obviously me and you find, truth sometimes is more interesting than what the fiction is. Um, but Hollywood obviously has a tendency of Hollywooding the hell out of anything.
Yeah.
All special effects. But
If I were to advise Hollywood, I'd say cut not as many car chases, and that's the same as every movie, and I think it's played out. I think the reality. I mean, we talked about how the reality can be a little boring to some, but if done the right way, I think the reality is more interesting, and a
yeah,
lot of this stuff you really just couldn't make up.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah. I can
you know
vouch
a
for
little bit
that one.
about that.
All right. On a I've got to ask you about this because you put a photograph up a while back of you and a sloth, and it's an amazing photograph. Obviously, now the viewers can see it on the screen. Explain to me how that happened.
It's my best recent photo because I've been doing a lot of social distancing with the coronavirus, and not so many good pictures lately. But no, this was great. This was right before. I guess that was a good year of travel too. Right before the year where I visited 6 or 7 countries in one year. Um, I was in Peru in the jungle. It was in Iquitos. It's actually the largest isolated city in the world, so it's not connected to the rest of the world by road. You can only get there by air or by boat. Yeah, I went there. It took about an hour. No, this was probably a half-day boat ride deep into the jungle. No, but no, that photo was actually in somebody's house in that city. But yeah, it was just an amazing experience. This was really in the jungle. It was just a sloth, and cutest thing. This one was domesticated. Um, Very cute sloth. He ate slowly. He actually climbed up me. I've got a cool video of him climbing up me, and um, yeah, very one of my favorite photos of all time.
I had to bring it up because a lot of people who I know have seen that. I've seen that picture, and they went, "That is actually really cool." Yeah. So you've
Only in Iquitos would somebody have a pet sloth.
yeah, exactly. It would only happen there, wouldn't it? Out of all the countries you've been to and all the places you've seen, and you've seen a lot and experienced a lot, which was your favorite place and why?
Ooh, that might be impossible to answer.
Yeah.
Obviously, I like Colombia. I'm here now, and part of that is just because it's I mean, a gorgeous city, very friendly, happy people. Um, y- People still think about the dangers of the Pablo Escobar days, but it's extremely safe. That's a good place just to live, just to work Monday to Friday, go out at night, enjoy life. Um, I think the places I've enjoyed, yeah, it's hard. They're all great. West Europe is always fun, although cliche. Everyone loves West Europe. Some of the more obscure places have been a lot of fun. I really liked. So this is a bad story for the CIA guy, but I was just traveling on my own, and I was in Kiev, Ukraine, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to Moscow. This will just be a cool, fun place to go. And I've gotten the U.S. passport has always been so accepted and powerful. I've just would go.
Yeah.
And Moscow was one because of my background. I did, I told my parents, hey, I'm going to write you every day just in case. I mean, it's not that worrisome, but you never know. So yeah, I was going to Moscow, and the flight from Kiev to Moscow ran through Minsk, Belarus.
Yeah.
And I was changing planes there, and they said, well, where's your visa? My visa? This was bad traveling. But I'm used to all that being handled for me for the most part. And basically I couldn't go to Moscow because I didn't have the visa. So Belarus had traditionally been closed off to all Western countries, and they had just recently, you could stay for something like up to a week with freely. So I ended up staying in Belarus for about a week, and it blew me away. It was just really interesting. I think a lot of places become touristy, where the areas that people go in every country, not every, but a lot of countries are very similar. And Belarus had not yet been touched by Western tourism, so it was all just. I mean, it felt more Russian than Russia, I would assume. So that was a very cool one.
So I bet you Jack Ryan wouldn't have had a problem with his visa.
They don't show that in the movies.
No, they don't, do they? Sometimes your administration, it causes problems, doesn't it? All right, Scott. Right. Is there anything else that you would like to say on the interview?
Um, it's interesting when I think back to my agency days. I do think back fondly, and we talk about the movies, and if there were a movie about my life, like what would be in it? And some of my favorite stories are like Family Day. There'd be a Family Day once a year, and your family would come to the CIA headquarters in Langley, and people don't realize these things happen. And
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. Like the polygraphers would say, okay, do you want to throw your mom under the polygraph machine, under the lie detector machine? And yeah.
Hell yeah.
A lot of good stories there. And I remember, it's a good question. My mom, one of the questions would be things like, do you own too many shoes? Or they would ask us what questions to ask her. And she passed. And so she said, no, I don't have too many shoes. And the machine said, no, she's not lying. And clearly she has too many shoes. So either my mom is a psychopath or she believes it. She believes she does not have too many shoes. And it's obviously the latter. Um, but yeah, funny things like that. And I remember the courtyard would have a sign. So if you go into the courtyard, it would say, hey, don't bring any classified materials out here, because the satellites overhead can zoom in and see it, which is amazing. You wouldn't think of it, but this is the kind of thing that happens in the agency world, in the agency lifestyle. And I remember thinking, oh, they're watching the the foreign intelligence agencies know that I'm eating a burger today, and that I'm reading The Economist, like, and that I didn't get a haircut because I've been working too hard.
Yeah, you've touched on something there, the lifestyle. We're obviously speaking about like the real Jack Ryan Hollywood, but there was a very serious side of your job, what you did as well. So what is it? What my people will be wondering, what is it really like to work within the agency as an analyst?
Yeah, that's a big question. I mean, the lifestyle, you're right, is very particular. And for that reason, a lot of people would not be able to, it would be hard on relationships. A lot of people could only date somebody in the agencies. There were a lot of agency romances for that reason, because um, you might have to work until midnight and not be able to say why, or you might have to go to a trip and not be able to say where. Um, I was lucky, and I the same girlfriend I was talking about when I went to the career fair. We were together for most of my agency career, and she was very understanding. And there was even like training sessions for domestic partners, that the agency put on to help educate partners and girlfriends, boyfriends, wives, and husbands, to prepare them. So that helps a little bit. But yeah, the lifestyle is very interesting. I'm not sure what else to say on that.
It's a difficult
People,
one. Yeah.
yeah, I remember the people on the inside. It was very, people are very smart and very passionate. And I remember one story or one situation where disagreements would turn into arguments because people were and about substance. It's about what is actually happening in this country or with this leader. And so it wasn't, it was all well intended, but I remember one case where this other analyst in a different office, um, I guess was just, I'd say was rude to me and was argumentative and became kind of fighting, a younger woman. And the next day, took me out to coffee just because once you're out of the heat of the moment, she felt bad and apologized. But it's very intense. People work a lot of hours. People are very passionate. I remember the arguments could span from uh, even just the wording on a PDB, the Presidential Daily Brief. This isn't probably. This should be most likely. Like very detailed arguments. Um, and we used to joke whenever you'd write for the president, you would it would have to be perfect because everybody, it will go through 10 layers of review and people will scrutinize every little detail. And we would joke about, ooh, there's 2 spaces after this period, with a former coworker of mine, and oh, this is really bad. They don't know what they're talking about. So yeah, very detailed. A lot of people who know, I mean, every single detail about what's happening, at least that was known. Um, when I left the agency, I did do some correspondence work and some interviews with the Tampa Bay Times on an unclassified level, of course. And it was interesting. There were some debates over, at this time it was the likelihood. I can talk about this. The CIA actually reviewed all of this for these interviews and for these articles. And there was an interesting debate, interesting to me, in the expert community about whether or not the Mexican drug cartels would smuggle terrorists into the US. And I was shocked because there shouldn't have been a debate. I mean, when you actually knew, in this case, it was the classified information, but when you knew that, of course not. There was no way. It shouldn't have even been a debate, but it makes it so that when I now see debates in the media or hear experts um, saying that something is certain, is no, they don't really necessarily know what they're saying.
There's a lot of so-called special advisors out there who
Mm,
are specialists in subjects, who are specialists in countries. Some of them have never been to these countries,
yeah.
and some of them have never actually spoken to anyone within these organizations. It baffles me sometimes how there is some good people out there. I'm not saying they're all bad. There's some incredible people out there that work, but sometimes within government circles, these special advisors, yeah, I'm not going to say anything else on that one.
No, I absolutely agree. And just because somebody is smart and speaks authoritatively doesn't mean they're right. That was my biggest takeaway. I didn't really realize that until I knew, until I had that inside information.
Yeah, you mentioned there, but what was the best lesson that you learned through all of your career and experience in the CIA?
Sorry, the best person I learned from?
Yeah. What was the best lesson? What did you take away, as in experience? What did you experience more?
It's funny because I developed a training for General Electric on critical thinking, and I started the training off um, by saying basically the point how I started off was, okay, you're wrong, and you're wrong, and I think my main takeaway was I'm wrong, we're all wrong, and we all have these biases, and you can't be consistently right until you realize how you're probably wrong. And even me, as when I'm an expert on something, I still don't know for sure, and that's we use a lot of probabilistic language of, maybe this is likely to happen, or this is almost certainly would be the highest likelihood we'd talk about, because you never know. And there's a good story they tell in the training, in the career analyst program training, about Sherman Kent, who's known to be the godfather of intelligence analysts and one of the best there's ever been. And he said that it was about the Cuban Missile Crisis. He said that it can't be happening because it would just be too stupid for Khrushchev to do that. And what he missed was, I mean, he was right about that, but what he missed was Khrushchev is a human being. So he made a mistake, maybe. So Sherman Kent was wrong. And you always can be wrong. If you're not looking for how you might be wrong, you're much more likely to be wrong.
Yeah. It's a very important lesson, not just from agency, but in life, I think, as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I always think people are not right all the time. We are human at the end of the day. Mistakes are made, you learn by them, you move on. But people do.
And I do want to say on that note, sorry to cut you off there, go on. I do want to say at that note, and it's been very painful with lately politics in the USA, that I feel like the politics have become more, I know what I'm talking about, and this guy is an idiot, more so than before, and it's bad. I mean, just as a student of critical thinking on both sides, the political debate really needs to improve. But that's just my personal
Yeah, I think
make the country better feeling.
I think politics of I don't understand them. I don't get involved in it. I don't get involved in politics. I don't agree with a lot of stuff that's out there at the moment anyway. But I think politicians are on either side having a go at each other, unproductive, negative, not good for them, not good for the people. That's my
think about remember 2001, right after 9/11. That's the perfect example of the opposite, where people threw that away and said, okay, there was something more important. And there were still Republicans and Democrats and clashing, but people, when it mattered, said, okay, this matters. We're going to try to figure out the right thing. And it's still difficult to find the right thing, even when you are working together. But there's a very different political climate. And there were problems with the political climate in those days too. But
I think after September the 11th thing, we actually saw a coming together, for want of a better word, of a lot of things. It's a shame we haven't got that again. It still does. There's some good, hard-working people out there, but it seems we're kind of strayed off the path, I think, a little bit. It'd be nice to see the politicians start coming together for the greater good, for want of a better word on that. On that one, who is the most interesting person you've ever met? Have I lost comms with you, Scott? Can you hear me? All right, I'm just going to pause this. I think I might have a comms problem.
Cool.
Hello, everybody. We're back. Slight technical problem on that one. All right, Scott. Obviously on this one, when you went to the White House for the very first time, can you tell us a little bit about that experience, please?
Yeah, it's funny. I'll never forget, because my first time to I think I lost you again.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Hey, Scott.
Yeah, I'll never forget my first time to the White House, because when you're walking in, nobody knows if you're an analyst in your first week or if you've somebody who actually is important. And I remember activists coming up to me and saying, "Oh, this is really important. Do this." And I'm just an analyst in my first couple of weeks or first couple of months. But I will say, I love going to the White House. Don't get me wrong, but I expected more. It's smaller and more of just a normal place than I expected. And I remember I also did some presentations and briefings in the briefing room. And I think it's most famously known for, there's a famous photo of President Obama in there. And it might be it might be the strike on Osama bin Laden, but it was a pretty common photo. And I remember in that briefing room, like, this isn't that impressive. In the situation room also is kind of just that's the situation room. Um, I do remember getting some White House M&Ms. Those are pretty cool, from the White House mess lounge. Um, Never made it to the White House bowling alley. I did a rotation with the White House, the Office of National Drug Control Policy, and had some access because of that. And I never made it to the bowling alley. That's a big regret of mine that might need to change. Um, but yeah, the White House, I guess I'd say it's smaller and less grand than I would have guessed.
Mm.
And maybe that's how it is with a lot of these. Even once you go to Langley and headquarters every day for years and years, it just becomes a regular building.
Yeah.
And I guess the one exception to that, I remember there was a big earthquake. God, this must have been like 2015, and so it's designed. A lot of the agency building was designed in with bomb shelters and the nuclear war in the Soviet days in mind. So this really took the shock out of this big earthquake. Um, so that was an interesting experience. But yeah, even the agency, the building is an odd combination of amazing. Sometimes you walk in and see the stars on the wall of the officers who have passed, the seal, and sometimes if you're just in a hurry or your mind's on the work, you don't even notice. Um, it's a weird dichotomy.
Yeah, it's okay. So the real Jack Ryan. Sometimes truth is stranger than what fiction is. Scott, I have very rarely got cause to say this, but thank you for your service. I'm obviously aware of a lot of what you've done, mate. Even if the public don't know it, and you've done a hell of a lot, mate. Okay,
Well, thank you,
so
and I appreciate that, and thank you for your service too. Also, you're the tip of the spear. I'm in the back. You were the one who risking your life, and thank you more for your experience than mine, to be honest.
well, hey, it takes us all of us working together as a team, keep the homeland safe. That's what it's about. Scott,
Yeah.
it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here, mate. It has. Okay. Thank you for coming on. And ladies and gentlemen, the real Jack Ryan. I've got a feeling you might be seeing a lot of him in the near future.
Hollywood, give me a call. No, it's been great talking with you, Anth, and thanks so much for having me.
Okay. If you can stay on the line for a minute, I'm just going to close the interview down. Right, ladies and
And
gentlemen, hope you've enjoyed the show. I'm going to sit in. Scott, anything else?
I'd like to just tell one more story, if you
Go
don't
for it.
mind, because I love this story. Um, I was in Tajikistan. This is a very remote country, and it's mostly speaking a combination of Russian and Arabic because the Soviets had controlled this country for a while. And there were 3 or 4 of us that went in there into a restaurant, and they saw us come in, I'm sure. So they started singing a Stevie Wonder song, and we couldn't believe it. This guy, he sang great. So we went up to him and gave him a few dollars or a few. I don't remember what their currency was. Gave them a little bit of money and started talking to him. He didn't speak a word of English. It was amazing. He just memorized the song and sang it perfectly. So then I was back in Washington, Arlington actually, and I was in the Apple store and I saw, oh, who's that over there? Oh, that's Stevie Wonder. So I actually gave my mom a call and she's like, go talk to him. And ended up talking to Stevie Wonder and told him this story. about this Tajik singer in the middle of the farthest you can get from the United States. And I thought Stevie Wonder was going to say this, give me a great quote to make this the most amazing story ever. And all he said was, Tajikistan, never heard of that before. It's like, oh, Stevie, come on.
He's got to get better than that, hasn't
But no, this is the kind of stuff you just can't make up. Like, you end up in Tajikistan, you hear a Stevie Wonder song, and then you get to tell Stevie Wonder about your hearing his song in Tajikistan, and pretty cool experience.
Exactly. That's what it's about. It's about the memories of what you did while you were traveling as well. Very important.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, on that bombshell, I hope you've all enjoyed the real Jack Ryan. It's been emotional, it's been informative, and like I said, hope you all enjoyed it. Stay safe, everyone who is deployed overseas. Catch you on the next show. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye. Thanks, Anth.